Now, our next speaker is actually Bill Costarides. Now, Night Scalper founder Bill Costarides has been trading the S&P and futures since it opened in 1997. He recognized that changes were coming in the way people entered and exited the market. After years and years of placing orders over the phone to the night desk at his broker, he was actually one of the pioneers to test some of the original electronic trading platforms. He spent countless hours over the past 2 decades studying trading, testing, staying in the lab till he got it right, which is what a real trader does to perfect his craft. His Greek heritage earned him the name Bill the Greek, and the rest is trading history. In 2010, he brought his strategy to traders across the globe, sharing his knowledge, his strategy, and his money management skills that have made him a world-recognized expert on trading the Globex. Located at Chicago Mercantile in Chicago, Illinois, the Globex is essentially the fastest and most reliable electronic trading system for futures and options. Bill continues to study and prepare for what the market will bring, and he shares that information and experience every night in his online trading room with his students. He calls real trades in a live market with his own money and helps his listeners navigate from entry to target while managing money along the way. So, without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Bill Costarides. So, Bill, go ahead and take over.
Morning, first of all, and we hope your weekend is off to a good start. And let me start by thanking you for sharing a bit of that weekend with us. You and I both know when it comes to learning how to navigate the financial markets, it's a jungle. And my goal this morning, to hopefully make your Saturday a better one, is to give you some information that will help you find your way. And through that jungle, help to navigate it, as I said. And if I do that this morning, then I hope you will find it time well spent. And first, let me introduce myself. My bio is there in front of you. You can see I'm considered an old man when it comes to being around Wall Street. Started with Merrill Lynch in 1977. And so I've been around a long time, and I am, to say the least, very disappointed to see how what has become of that institution. But I'm not going to dwell on that this morning. And also with us, we have what we think is the only moderator in a live chat room who is a real live rocket scientist. We like to say in the room when we're telling people things, this is not rocket science, and we actually have one of those in the room. Woody's with NASA for many, many years, and retired from the shuttle program. He was one of the senior engineers and decided he would start trading professionally. He joined our program and became so involved with what we do that he stayed with us and now is one of our moderators and professional traders. And he's in the room with us in the evenings and the mornings, helping you and helping me make your life easier. Okay? All right, so before I get started, how many of you have actually traded in the Globex? Now, that's the market that starts at 5 o'clock in the evening, which actually starts the day's trading. It's all futures and goes till about, well, goes around the clock, but technically it starts trading about 8:30 in the morning. The CME, as most of you heard earlier, was created in, well, not the CME, but the Globex trading system was created by the CME in conjunction with Reuters in the early 90s. And it was essentially created to accommodate Forex traders. And as many of you know, the currency markets, they were trading 24 hours even back in those days. And so you had traders that were on the floor at night, and it was very slow. And they were actually losing money on trading during the evening hours. So they created this electronic platform, which is considered today to be the grandfather of electronic trading platforms that most of you trade on. And I was involved in experimenting with those platforms and helping them develop these platforms and making them better, hopefully. In fact, in those days, you couldn't just access this market. You had to have certain qualifications and experience, and it was expensive, a few $1,000s just to obtain what they called a Globex terminal. And that terminal was the only way you could enter orders. It was expensive to maintain on a monthly basis. It was about $1,000 a month. The fills were awful, to say the least. It was very, very slow and very illiquid. It wasn't unusual to have a point slippage on a trade. Commissions were $25 a round turn, and all you could trade were the S&Ps, the bonds, and maybe currencies and a handful of other financial markets. So it's really evolved over the years to where now anyone with a computer and a little money in their account can access the 24-hour global market and access literally any market around the world. I will tell you, even as a money manager, and that's where I spent most of my career, managing several $100 million when I was before I retired. And in the 90s, that's how I got involved with the Globex and the after hours and overseas markets, because I was looking for a way to not only hedge portfolios, but to personally maybe take advantage of opportunities that I perceived in the overseas markets. For example, I think most of you remember in the 90s, the Japanese economy was just booming. Their market was trading in the 40,000 range on their index, and I thought it had gotten a little frothy and was something that I could short and buy puts on and maybe make some money. And so I started to explore that opportunity, and there was just no way to do it. I had to open an account with my firm, even though we had offices in Japan at the time. I could open an account with them and trade puts if I liked, but the fills were extremely poor. The spreads were huge, very illiquid, and I couldn't get real-time quotes to know where I was or what I was doing, so I chose to leave it alone, only to find that the Nikkei went, as many of you know now, from some 40,000 down to 7,000 ultimately, and it's in the 14,000 range today. Today, if you want to trade the Nikkei, you can push a button and you're in a trade in a matter of seconds, and that's the market that we're going to talk about today. Now, the Globex, the actual hours are from 5 p.m., as I said, till 8:30 in the morning, and that's when the U.S. opens, so it's seamless, but technically the U.S. starts trading at 8:30. So the times that we're going to cover tonight that cover this market are from 5 p.m. till 5 in the morning. Now, most folks think that the trading in the world starts at 8:30 in the morning when the U.S. markets open, and I know a lot of you know there are markets overseas that trade at night. But the new trading day technically starts at 5 o'clock. That's when all the various platforms reset their computers and their servers. So the trading day starts at 5 o'clock in the evening. So that market closes at 3:15 in the U.S. That's when the S&Ps or the futures stop trading. They reopen at 3:30. Then they close at 4:15. So if you're in a trade after 4:15, you're going to have a margin call, and then they reopen at 5 o'clock. They just changed these hours recently. Okay, sir. So what we're going to talk about today, especially if you've never traded futures, if you have an interest in trading futures, if you're just beginning to trade futures, the one thing that I will promise you in all the years I've been doing this, and as I say this, I want you to know that I doubt you will meet very many people who have been involved with this Globex since inception. There's just a handful of us, and I know most of them, and there's just not a lot of us around. And I'll also tell you that I wish I'd have had someone to help me understand and navigate that market. There weren't any manuals or books or someone to tell us what to do or not to do because it was a new market. But if you want to learn to trade in these markets, in my opinion, the Globex market is the place to learn to trade futures, not where you trade futures during the day, because that's like trading in the, especially with today's volatility, that is a hard place to learn how to trade. So in the Globex, it's easier to trade, and the markets move slower. That's one of the main reasons. It's a better trending market. You have no computer buy and sell programs, one of my favorites, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we have developed indicators that only work at night. Now, many of you, especially here of late in the last week, you've heard a lot about high-frequency trading. It's been all over CNBC and NBC and you name it, Bloomberg. And there's one particular firm who's trying to go public. They had, and I want you to think about this now, out of 1,238 trading days, they only have one losing day. That's almost 5 years. 1,238 days, they only have one losing day using the high-speed trading and high-speed computers that are co-located on the exchanges that do, orders in milliseconds. I don't even know what they are anymore. And you don't have these buy and sell programs at night, or quant models as we like to call them. They just don't have enough volume at night to accommodate the massive amount of volume they need to do what they do. So to me, that's a huge advantage. I'm not going to tell you there aren't computers putting in buy and sell orders in some of the major markets that we follow at night, trying to find direction on the S&P. But you don't have high-frequency trading to the extent that you have it in the U.S. market during the day. And because there's less volatility, you can use tighter stops and less risk. At night, we use 2 to 2.5 point stops, which is nothing if you've watched the markets during the day. They're not going to do you any good whatsoever. Okay. All right. In addition to the ability to trade these markets, they're also an excellent tool for hedging a portfolio. And, we live now in the global marketplace. We all know that. We'll talk some more about that in just a few minutes. That's my favorite topic. And in the 24-hour marketplace, it's very often you will find there's news that occurs while you've been sleeping. In fact, most of the news that affects the U.S. market during the day occurs usually while you're asleep in this space we call the Globex. And for example, how many times have you gone to bed happy that your portfolio is doing well and you have it set up the way you want it, only to find that the entire market profile has changed because of a Lehman Brothers or a Bear Stearns or a tsunami in Japan, crisis in Europe with Greece, something in the Ukraine, China, which we see a lot of here of late. China's GDP was either up or down and is affecting how the markets are going to open. A few years ago, you really didn't care about what was going on in China. Let's face it, it's a communist country. It's a closed system that walks and talks like a capitalistic system. But today, if you don't know what's going on in China, then you're at a huge disadvantage. And so you better know what's going on in the 24-hour market. And there's a lot of opportunities that if you find, even if you're not going to trade this market, that if something has changed since you traded last and you need to hedge your portfolio, this is also an excellent place to hedge. And it's the only place, frankly, where if you find that something's changed and you need to hedge your portfolio, you can go in with futures and hedge your positions and at least lock in your profits or lock in the status of your portfolio. And it's not expensive. It's not very difficult at all to do. Okay. So this is kind of a quick slide on what that hedging would look like. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because we're only limited in our time this morning. Okay, sir. These slides are available. If you'll email us at Night Scalper, we'll put that up for you later, and you can get this information and study it at your leisure. Okay, so I know many of you have asked this question. I know I've asked it. I've discussed it. We all probably ask ourselves this from time to time, and what is the difference between an average trader and a successful one? And if you'll hold your questions till the end, I'll be happy to answer them the best I can. So what we're going to talk about now is how we approach this market at night, what our plan is, and how we approach it. And so after doing this for 24 years, I think we have found a very good system that works very well. All right, so real quick, I'm going to cover key market times, proprietary indicators. Greek isms, that's a nickname that the folks in the room have given what are, essentially broad signals that we use to navigate these markets. And then my favorite is money management. If you don't have a good money management system, you're just not going to be successful on a consistent basis. So let's go through these now. Okay, so the difference in the markets at this time is you don't have to worry about what the Nikkei is doing during the day on a regular basis now. If there's extreme news or crisis, of course, it's different. You don't have to worry about what the DAX in Germany's doing or the UK and England's doing, but you need to kind of know what these markets are doing now. During the Asian session, which we define from 5 p.m. till 12, and all the times, by the way, I'm going to use are central times. And so from 5 p.m. till 12, the Asian markets generally control the direction of the S&P. Now also, as I'm going through this, we only trade the S&P at night, the E-mini. We don't trade any other markets, although we look at a lot of markets to determine how we should or should not get into a trade on the S&Ps. My philosophy is and has been learn one market and learn it well. Okay, so what we have found that during the Asian session, the Asian markets control the S&Ps from 5 p.m. till 12 midnight. Now, if you don't believe me, just tune in one night. You can go on Bloomberg. They post the quotes in the Globex throughout the night. And it's along the bottom of the screen. And if there's Chinese news, especially if it's PMI news, just watch how all the markets move when that news comes out. But the markets we have found that move the S&Ps at night are the Hang Seng and the Nikkei. Now, a lot of you will generally ask me, what about the Australian markets that are open at that time, or South Korea? And yes, those are major economies, but they just don't affect the S&Ps at night like the Hang Seng and the Nikkei do. So we follow those two markets, and we follow them very closely at night. Now, after midnight, we get into the European markets, and it's the European markets that control. And those markets go from 12 a.m. till 5 in the morning. Then after 5 o'clock, we have found that these indicators that I've spent years developing don't work as well. Plus, you're starting to get into the pre-U.S. Open, and by 5 o'clock, the U.S. market's really starting to take over and dominate, what the markets are going to do. But the two markets that we follow at that time are the DAX and the FTSE. And so the DAX, of course, in Germany, being the largest economy, that's the obvious one. And then the UK and England, which is one of the more, well, it was until recently, if you've just seen in the news, the financial center of the world. So, as I said earlier, examples of how these markets can change overnight and change how the U.S. market at least opens in the morning. I can't think how many times, in fact, we just had it recently, where you'll wake up and hear how the markets were down overseas and how they're going to affect the U.S. S&Ps and U.S. opening because of a weak economy in China. So it is important that you understand and follow these markets, because if you don't, you're at a huge disadvantage. Now, what I like to say when I'm talking about this market, which is obviously my favorite market to trade, We're in a 24-hour marketplace. We all know that. We all understand that now. 3 or 4 years ago, I was still on my soapbox, preaching the 24-hour market, but everyone, understands that we're in a global economy. We're not an island unto ourselves. If you ignore the Globex, if you do not at least in basic terms understand what's going on in the Globex market or the overnight markets or the overseas markets, you're leaving 17 hours of valuable information and useful tools that can help you become a better investor or a better trader. You've got 8 hours roughly of U.S. market, 17 hours overseas and international tradings that will affect our market. And if you're not keeping up with what's going on in that space, you're leaving a lot of information on the table. And so we find it's very important. In fact, it's almost mandatory if you're going to trade that you need to understand these markets at least in a basic sense, even if you're not going to trade them. So I have spent years developing proprietary indicators tailored to this market overnight. Okay, so some of the key things that you need to know to trade in this space at night or the Globex is when the markets are known to move. These are called pivot times. International markets, you need to understand and know about the DAX, the FTSE, the Hang Seng, and the Nikkei as we just talked about. My favorite and primary indicator is the depth of market or the DOM, which all of you should have on your platforms. If you don't, I would find a platform where you can get a DOM, because at night, if you're going to follow these markets, it's a very valuable tool to have. And then, of course, there are the other markets that we follow. As I said earlier, you will find that the bonds, the yen, the euro can have an effect on how these S&Ps move at night. Okay, and Greek isms, as I said a few minutes ago, these are the broad signals that we use in trying to understand and find trades and navigate this market. So in doing this almost since the inception of the Globex, 24 years, I've developed, these signals and proprietary trade setups that I don't think you're going to see or find anywhere else. At least I haven't found anyone else that does this the way we do it. So let's look at a few of these real quick. Okay, one of my favorite trade setups, and we probably on a percentage basis make more money off of this particular Greekism or signal than any others there are. When there's bad news early during the day session in the U.S., typically it's the employment numbers. They come in and they're disappointing, and the market starts to sell off in a dramatic way. The markets catch everyone getting short, then they spend the rest of the day taking those markets up, squeezing the shorts, as we like to say, and we find that is a great opportunity, especially if they close it in the last hour of trading at the top tick of the last hour. Then we're able to short that right at the close, take a quick profit on the opening in the Globex. Again, they stop trading at 4:15, so somewhere between 3:45 and 4:15 we sell them. Then as soon as the Globex opens at 5 in the afternoon, there's usually a little pullback, and it's a quick scalp for us, and we're already off to a good night with a profit. Here's a slide of what that would look like. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because, like I said, our time is limited. All right, another one of these Greekisms or signals are the Mondays following options expiration. Everything I talk about, guys and gals, these are events or signals that happen at least 80% of the time. And I have found that if I can find something that works 80% of the time, then I found something I can make money with. So are any of these events that I'm talking about, especially this one, do they happen 100% of the time? No, of course not. You know it and I know it. If anyone ever tells you they have a signal or a system that works 100% of the time, you need to run in the other direction. But the Monday after options expiration is usually going to open up, and there's still adjustments from Friday options expiration that are taking place. And why is this good information to have? Because if you're trading in the Globex at night and you find that that market is a short at the time, that's what it looks like you should be doing with it. So you sell it early Sunday. It opens on 5 o'clock Sunday night. That's when the week's trading actually begins. So you're short in the market, but if you know that at some point this market's going to turn around, it might be 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning or 4 in the morning, or not till just the opening in the morning. That's good information to have and can keep you from getting caught if you're short. And again, here's a slide of what one of those trades may look like, but again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. All right. As I said earlier, money management. This is one of my favorite topics. We spend a lot of time talking in our chat room about money management, and when we try to educate our traders, this is something we harp on probably as much as the mechanics of trading. If you do not have a good money management system, I don't care how good your discipline is, I don't care what your mechanics are for entering and exiting trades, you're just not going to be successful on a regular basis. Now, here are some of the biggest mistakes that I find most folks make in their trading, especially those who just start out. All right, the first one, I think all of you will understand this one. It's an easy one to understand, is overtrading. I can't tell you how many times I've seen traders who, make their first or second trade and they've made money, only to continue to trade until they give it back and then some. I'm not going to compare what we do to casinos. I would never do that because it's not that kind of speculation. But I will tell you this, and this is what the casinos know, and you probably know it, even if you've never been in a casino. What they know is if they can keep you there long enough, you're going to lose money. That's the whole key to their philosophy and the way they make money in those institutions. That's why they ply you with drinks, and all the entertainment is to keep you in the building. Number two, and I think you will understand this one as well, is trying to hit home runs. Instead of trying to hit singles and, scalp trades and not expose yourself a long time to the markets, trying to hit home runs is another big mistake that we see traders making. Now this one probably surprises you a little bit, not withdrawing profits on a regular basis. Now we find that when you're making money and you're trading consistently and you're doing it on a consistent basis, you're working hard, you're maintaining your discipline, you're spending a lot of time at the computer, take some money out of your account, reward yourself. It's kind of like Pavlov's dog. When you do something and reward yourself for it, you're more apt to do it over and over again in the right way. So we believe in this in a big way, and we think it's important that you do this. Whether you do it weekly or monthly, we think it's important that you do. And here's a big one, and this is probably the crux of our system, is trading either too many or not enough contracts. I apologize because I'm not able to move the slides, which is normally something I'm able to do. So there's a little pause in these slides as they advance. All right, now many of the night scalper traders, the folks that trade in our group and in our room, they're in that room looking for income. So just let me say this before we continue on. If you're hoping to trade with us for the rush, for the adrenaline, for the action, I think you'll be disappointed. In the Globex at night, I will tell you, if there's a disadvantage of it, it does require more patience than during the day. As you heard me say earlier, it's a slower moving market. It's a less volatile market. There are times at night where it's like watching paint dry. And I will say two things that most folks who join our chat room find is a disadvantage, is that sometimes the markets are very quiet and they just don't want to sit in front of a screen, especially if they've been working all day. And we know that, and we understand that. And we have alarm systems. We have emails. We tell you to turn on your computer, turn the sound up, go eat dinner with your family, go watch TV, read a book, whatever. Turn your sounds up on the speakers if something happens, if we're going to enter a trade, exit a trade, change a trade. If there's news, we'll make an alarm that will get your attention. We send out emails that now can go to your smartphone, so just have your smartphone with you, and they'll alert you as to something's changed or that we're doing something in the market. So that's how we overcome that. We also know that if you have a job, or even if you don't have a job, you're not going to stay up till 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning. I know a lot of you are thinking, well, I can't stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning. This is insane. We're also aware of that. And so the majority of our trades take place between 5 in the evening and midnight. That probably 70% of our trades take place during that time space. The other 30% take place after Europe opens at midnight. And we have now a large group of folks from Australia and Europe that, of course, they're the ones that are up with us because that's their daytime. And then we have a few of our night owls that just carry over through the night. But our goal, to get back on what I was going to say, our goal is to make 1 or 2 points a trade and to have 2 or 3 trades a night. And if we can do that, you'll have a great month. All right, so what we do in the night scalper room and the night scalper trading system is we trade multiple contracts. Now, most of you who trade maybe one S&P or want to trade one S&P during the day, we maintain you can trade 2 at night because it's a much slower market, as I said earlier. And what we'll normally do is that we'll put 2 on, and we may even stagger how we put those 2 on. And just let me give you some, we'll use 1850 right now because that's kind of where the markets are in the 1850, 1860 on the S&Ps. But let's just use 1850 as a conversation example. Let's say we want to sell 1850. That's where we think a good trade is. We might put 1 contract on at 1850. Take a look at the indicators, see if they get stronger and that we have the direction right, then put another one on at maybe 49.5. So now we're short 2 contracts, and if they go to 47, we'll take 1 off. We'll move our stops down now to maybe 47 3/4, 48. Now we cannot lose money on the trade, and we still have 1 contract left that most folks in the business call a runner. So if that market really continues to break down or sell off, then we can make really a really nice profit on the runner. So when you have a situation where you're already in the catbird seat, you already have a profit on 1 contract, and you bring your stops down, you can't lose money on the remaining contract. It's a system that works well, works consistently, and people make money from it on a regular basis. So the number one, very first thing we ask you to do when you join our chat room and our group, and it's a great group. I think we have one of the friendlier and we have one of the best chat rooms around. Everyone in the room wants to help and loves to do so. They become like a little community, especially at night when these markets get a little quiet. They'll do a little socializing online, and it's just like a little social chat room. In fact, we have 1 or 2 people that tell us they're in there more for the socialization than anything else. Okay, so the first thing we're going to ask you to do when you join our group is to set a goal. This is a very important first step. And what we do is we'll say or ask you to set your goal, and let's just use the example that's on the slide, whether it's 1,000 or 4,000, doesn't matter. Set a goal, a reasonable goal, obviously. You want to make $2,000 a month using the example on the slide. You're going to assume there are 20 trading days out of each month. Well, you want to average $100 a night, $100 a session. That's not hard to do. Now, some nights you're going to lose money. You know it, and I know it. Some nights you might make more than 100. So your average is to make $100 a day. And if you can do that, and we do that on a regular basis, then you can reach your goal. In other words, if you're trading the S&P and you're all you have to do on 2 contracts is make 1.5 to 2 points, and you've made your goal, and that's not hard to do on a regular basis, guys and gals. Okay, Woody. So we, in our Night Scalper system, we encourage you to treat this as a job, not as a hobby, not as entertainment. Learn the process and minimize your risk. That's what we do in this room. Don't overtrade. And guys and gals, this is probably the hardest thing to do as a trader. I know it is for me. I can't tell you how many times I have reached my goal in the Globex only to give it back in this day market. When you reach your goal, quit. You know, if your goal is to make that $100 a day and you've made 125 or 150, quit. Walk away from the computer. Go do something else, you know, that you like to do. So you take that weekly paycheck, that monthly profit from your account, and that, like I say, reinforces your efforts and reinforces your discipline. All right, so I'm going to take a second here, and while I'm doing this, Christian, if somehow or another you can show me how to expand the question field, because mine is almost closed up, because again, I'm just not familiar with this room. Woody's going to come on real quick, show you a little bit about our trade room and what it looks like, so you can get a feel for it and some of the indicators that we use in that room. Okay, Woody?
Yeah, can you guys all hear me? A little one sound check from somebody. Okay, great. As far as the projections goes, Bill talked about the foreign market data that we use, and what he didn't mention was that we need these as real-time data from the respective markets, not the stuff that you get from the CME or whatever, because those are usually delayed 15 to 20 minutes. So we have the Nikkei data from the Singapore exchange. We have the HSI data from the Hong Kong exchange. We have the DAX and the FTSE from the Eurex exchange, and we project those in our trade room. So you wouldn't have the added expense of that data if you were in our trade room. Bill mentioned the DOM as being one of his favorite indicators for trading, and we have developed a DOM-o-matic, and I'll explain that a little bit more when we get to the picture parts here. We have something that we call initial balance levels, or IB levels. We have trigger lines, trade by color. We have bloodline, which is just basically a 53 EMA, Bollinger Bands, and one that's really good is the volume MACD histogram. We also project a time and sales window, so rather than talk about this, I'll show you our trade room projection. We have up here on the upper right-hand side, that's the foreign market data. We have a chart that shows a lot of these indicators that I spoke of, a time and sales window over here, and we're trying to transition to a NinjaTrader screen to project the foreign data, but that's still in work process. As I mentioned, the DOM-o-matic, this is one of our indicators. Now, Bill has a technique that he likes to teach, which is to use 5 levels and to add up the contracts on the bid and ask side, and basically we have an indicator that does that automatically and shows you the direction of the movements in our trade room. IB levels are something that I created, and basically what we do is we watch the first hour of movement in the market, and this sort of sets a range. And then coincidentally, for the remainder of that session, the market will often trade very accurately within 50% movements of that amount of movement of the initial hour. And that's what these IB indicators are, and that's what these lines are on our charts. And we use them sometimes to take or get out of a trade as a good target. We do also have some trade by, well, this is still more explanation on IB indicators, and this is in the US day market, just to sort of show you what happens. The first hour is monitored here, and the high and the low are defined. Then once they're defined for the rest of the day, we project these levels on the day end. The beauty of this is that these pivots are not a function of yesterday's market enthusiasm, but they are today's market enthusiasm projected on today, not yesterday's high, low, and close, making an attempt to project a pivot on today's market. That, you know, just like we saw a week ago with the news where one day, you know, Ukraine was very concerning and the market dropped heavily, and then the next day, you know, Putin had come along and said that wasn't his plans to take over the whole Ukraine, and the market traded back up. Well, the pivots from Monday really had no bearing on Tuesday, but we had a set of pivots associated with Tuesday based on Tuesday's enthusiasm. Anyway, I'll go to the next slide. So initial balance, here's some of the details on that. I don't want to go into all that. We do this in our training sessions during the month, but I kind of gave you a little hint of that when I was discussing it. We have another signal that's basically a green line, red line. When it breaks above this yellow line, it's a long trade, and when it's below, it's a short trade. We use this. You could use this sometimes in the day market or whatever you need to really. It really would work better in the day than the night on a long trend in day. And this example is from last May. You can tell by the 1657 values. We're a couple hundred points higher now in the ES. This describes trade by color, and it also talks about the volume MACD. You know, we go into these in greater detail in our educational sessions every month. So I'll give this back to Bill, and he will proceed from here.
Okay, can you hear me again? Okay, thank you, Woody. So again, to summarize essentially what we've talked about, the key market times and the proprietary indicators and Greekisms and money management. We have every first Tuesday of the month, we have 2 hours of in-depth education that we provide to folks in our trade room. We don't try to charge extra or surcharge for any of that. It's a one-price trade room, and that's it. Okay, Woody. I know some of you, before you ask the question, are going to ask us, well, what about your performance? We call trades in the room every night, as I said before. Some nights we may start early if we have a setup on that short squeeze, which I talked about earlier. But we call trades live. We have the only chat room. And guys and gals, let me leave you with this, if I leave you with nothing else. We have a very unique program. We don't know of anyone else that does what we do. Yes, there are lots of chat rooms around that operate during the day, but at night we're the only ones we know of that go from 5 in the evening till 5 in the morning. We're there to help you. We have professional traders in the rooms at all time. I'm there, you know, the majority of the time. Woody's there. Another one, Bass Boat is his nickname, Harry. Like I said, our chat room, you know, everyone gives each other nicknames. They like doing that. That's something they started years ago. But we have the only chat room in this space. It goes from 5 in the evening till 5 in the morning. You know, generally we're done by 2 or 3 in the morning. And as I said earlier, we are generally done with the majority of our trades by midnight. And so we have, I would say, at least 70% of our trades take place before midnight, and that's when most of our folks are usually, they leave the room somewhere around 10 or 11. But here's a chart of our performance. I will tell you that in the month of March we're down a little bit, and we haven't had a down month in I don't know how long, but hopefully we'll pull it out before the end of the month. but it's a fairly simple. Okay, and I know as you're listening to this, there are two things going through your mind. I've been doing it that long. You know, I don't want to become an international economist. It sounds complicated. It sounds like a lot of learning. Guys and gals, it's not. I'll say this again. If you want to learn to trade options, this is the easiest place to learn to do that. It is the best place. It's a slower market. It's a more developing market. And that's the best place to learn how to trade futures, rather. If you're going to try to trade futures during the day, and this, particularly in this market, you've seen the volatility. I mean, it's a very difficult market to trade during the day. I'm not going to tell you we don't have volatility some nights in the Globex. Sure we do. But it's just a more logical, sensible market at night to learn to trade futures. And if you have any thought whatsoever to learn how to trade futures, or you just started to learn how to trade futures and you want to learn more, this is the place to do it. Plus, this market will help give you direction and clues to how to trade during the day as well. All right, so here's what I am going to offer you today. We're going to give you 30 days to change your ways. And let me tell you what you're going to get. In that 30 days, you're going to get our basic course. You're going to get 30 days access to the Night Scalper trade room to see if this works the way we say it does, to see if it works for you and works for your lifestyle. The one thing I will say is that this market offers you, more flexibility. I can't tell you how many times I've had people tell me, Bill, I want to learn how to trade. I want to trade futures, but I have a job during the day, so I can't trade during the day. And this is an excellent place, for them to learn and start to do that. And, what I have found is when you have a 17-hour market, you're going to find the time that suits your schedule the best, whether it's from 5 to 8 or 8 to 10, or we have a lot of ladies in our room, that are also mothers. In fact, they're some of our best traders. Once they get their kids settled, then they start to focus on their trading. So you'll find the time of night that suits your schedule, that fits your lifestyle. So it is an advantage in that respect. A disadvantage, for folks who just have to get up the next morning and don't want to stay up. All right, first Tuesday, as I said, we have the 30 days access to the trade room. We have the first Tuesday of every month. We do a couple of hours of live trading and education. You'll get your trade alerts during those 30 days talking about the trades and the market. You'll get the market times, indicators, and trades. You get the low-risk, high-reward trade setups and all the useful tools and indicators. It's $47 for that 30 days. After the $47, if you find that it works the way I've said it does, it works for you, it works for your lifestyle, it fits what you're looking for, it's $147 a month. And that's it, guys and gals. We don't come back and try to sell you extra education or extra indicators or anything else. It's $147 a month. After the $47 30-day trial, it's $147 a month. All the education you can eat, all the trading you can do, all the access to the trade room. We do education along through the course of the night. People will ask us, well, why are we doing this? Why are you doing that? So we have ongoing education during the evenings in the chat room. Then we have the in-depth education the first Tuesday of every month. Nothing changes. You get all of this for the $147 a month. And I'm telling you, if you're making $1,000 to $1,500 a month or whatever you make in the room, it's nothing. So it's $47 for 30 days, and then it goes to $147 a month. Now, as I said before, I would hopefully we'd have enough time, I think we do, to take some questions. So give me a minute to scroll back just a little bit and get caught up with you. Okay, I'm going to start with Arthur. Okay, Woody kind of answered this question already, Arthur, his question about how many members get to see the Asian market information. And you have to have, and this is probably one of the biggest advantages of our chat room, if you're going to trade in this space at night, especially between 5 and midnight when the Asian markets dominate, you have to have real-time quotes on the Nikkei and the Hang Seng. Now, a lot of folks will go online and try to get those. They're 10, 15 minutes delayed, or they'll stare at Bloomberg and try to get them. That's not going to get it, because when there's news, 10 minutes can be a lifetime, especially if there's news. These markets can change direction, as you know and I know, in a matter of minutes. So you have to have real-time quotes on the Hang Seng and the Nikkei, and the only way to get those during the Globex session is you have to have a feed from the Singapore Exchange, and those feeds are expensive. Most platforms are going to charge you anywhere from $25 to $60, $70 a month to get those quotes on your platform. We provide those to you in the room for free. So there's a value of $25 to $50 to $60 right there free. Those are projected in our classroom for you to get as part of what we do. That's a great question, George. Are bankers and brokerage firms trading the Globex? I happen to know for a fact that some of the Globex markets are being traded by Goldman, and I'm not sure of some of the other firms, but you don't have near the firms trading in the Globex at night you have during the day. And of course you have some overseas firms that would be, you know, the equivalent to a Goldman Sachs or a Morgan Chase. But there, again, there's just not enough volume to accommodate, you know, what these folks do. But to tell you they're not in this space, yes, they're in that space. They use it a lot for hedging their portfolios, for putting stops on positions. That's mostly what they do. Do they trade in it? I do believe there is some of that trading that goes on, yes. But again, they're just not at the volume at night that there is during the day. Okay, D. Morphy. I'm not sure. How the proprietary stuff is this where I am following signals? I don't understand. As we're in the chat room at night, as you know, we have new people joining all the time. We get questions about what we're doing. So we have some, you know, teaching that goes on during the chat room, but we have separate classrooms, you know, for education, and we're always educating. We believe that you have to be educated. That's the number one tool you can get, and that's the number one tool we use. There's the Greek isms and money management. All that's included in the $47 for the 30 days. It's in our modules, and there's actually 15 of the Greek isms, and then there's my proprietary indicators, which are 6 or 7 of those. Let's see, Sandy, is it live charts? And Woody answered that one, yes. Can you trade on Thinkorswim? We don't really care what platform you use. We support Ninja and OEC, but you can trade on any platform as long as you have a dome, as long as you're happy with the fills and the commissions they're charging you. We don't care what platform you use. Okay, Joe, Woody answered your question. He uses Ninja and I use OEC. If you don't have a Ninja provider, we network with one that has a real great commission rate. We'll be happy to refer you to. Just email us at the website. And I think, Kevin, I answered your question, as well as Wilson. George, Metastock, I am not familiar with. As I said, if it has good quotes, accurate, real-time information, good executions, you know, one of the biggest disadvantages to different platforms that we find is that some will charge you $5,000 to hold a contract overnight. Some want $10,000. Most of the platforms we affiliate with require you to have $500 per one S&P contract you want to trade on a day margin basis. Okay. Alexander, can you get them through an FX broker? Chances are most FX platforms, you can trade the S&Ps on and get the domes. And John, I think Woody answered your question. Mike as well. JT, what platform the indicators and tools are running now? They run on our platform, but we have a Ninja and an OEC support, mostly Ninja. Kevin, Woody answered your question, I hope. TradeStation, Luis, yes. TradeStation, we have several of the folks in our room that use TradeStation. It works fine for them. What time frame do you trade on? We generally, Crandall, start at 5 p.m. and we go till 5 in the morning. The room is open literally all day for those who want to network and trade during the day as well. But we're most active in the room between, I would say, 5 and midnight. Then we call trades till probably 3 in the morning. It could go past that. That's going to depend on the markets and the trades. OEC is Open eCry, Joe. It's a platform like Ninja. There are a lot of folks that use the DAX, that trade the DAX in our room. It's just the S&P we find is an easier instrument to trade than the DAX. The DAX can be very volatile and expensive. Then you have to do the conversion to the euros. Thank you for your time and hosting us today. Woody, thank you for your help. Everyone, I hope you have a great weekend. And we hope we said, as we started, at least one thing that will help you with your trading and navigating these markets. Thank you again.